Welcome everyone to Nightcap Candid Cafe Conversations. I, of course, am Maria. And today I say it every time, but it's true every time. An absolute joyous pleasure to be here today with someone I've been a fan of for a very long time. And I'm sure a lot of you are probably also fans of it as well. Trevor Henderson.
Hey,
Yay!
thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for saying yes.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally arranged it and found a time that works.
Yeah, we are two very busy adults, and so this has been a long time coming,
A little bit.
and I'm just absolutely thrilled that we
Yeah.
finally got to have it happen. As I mentioned, there's probably a lot of people who know who you are, but a lot of people might not have seen your face or anything,
Yeah.
or heard your voice or anything like that. So, for anyone who doesn't know what kind of person you are, I mean, you seem like a really cool person, but some of the things that you do, some of the things you might be known for on the internet as a whole,
Yeah.
or elsewhere. What's a brief summary of some of the things people might know you from?
Yeah, I mean, for the last, I forgot, it's been like almost 5 years now, 4 years. I guess I've been focused on making like monsters on the internet using photos, often donated by other Twitter users, and just, painting monsters into the photos to kind of make this interconnected world of weird ghosts and entities and stuff that's kind of built on itself over the last 4 years, especially with the response, which has been really positive, almost from the beginning. I guess that's mainly what I've been doing for the last half a decade.
Amazing.
Oh.
Making spooky things on the internet is always a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It's always super fun. One of the biggest things that you've created, or rather I say biggest, it's probably one of the more widely known things, where if they don't know you, they might know this thing you created, which is Sirenhead.
Yeah.
Which is, there's been a bunch of video games based off of it, a bunch of memorabilia and stuff about that. So that's the one I want to start off by just addressing that giant monstrosity in the room.
Yeah.
How did Sirenhead escape your brain into reality?
Well, when I made Sirenhead, it wasn't like a big notable thing, because at that point in time, that was when I was still at my last retail job, where I've worked retail all my life up until like 2 years ago or so, when I was finally able to go freelance full time, which is lovely. But at the time, I was working a job I didn't really care for, basically, and I would, come home at 5 or 6 or 7, and I didn't have time to do a whole painting or something, and to kind of stay ahead of the algorithm or whatever on Twitter and social media, and to stay popular, I guess, or to on people's eyes, you have to be producing work a lot of the time. And then I found out, like, oh, I can take these photos, first ones that I took, and then eventually ones that other people sent in for variety, and just like, oh, what if I just try and like match a monster in here and try and like make the lighting work and the color and the grain and just see how realistic I can make it. So by the point where I made Sirenhead, I was doing like 2 or 3 of those a night. There was like a period of time where I was just pumping them out. A lot of them aren't very good from that period of time, because they look really fake, because I was still learning a little bit about it. But I just did Sirenhead because I found that photo that had been donated, of like this daylit cemetery on a hill, kind of. And then I just had the idea of, I was at that time and am still obsessed with number stations. So I wanted to do like a monster that was kind of like an embodiment of a number station, which are like these, if you don't know, they're these super spooky, anomalous radio signals that no one really knows where they're from.
Okay.
Yeah, people say they're like a spy stations from like,
oh yeah, like intercepting like secret service spy networks or whatever.
Exactly. But I don't think there's ever been a definitive answer what they are, but you can still tune into them. There's a variety of them that are still going. They're just like weird jingles, and then just like a little girl's voice saying like 9, 18, 7.
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
Yeah.
Welcome to Night Vale did something similar to that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so scary.
It's super
so
frightening.
Creepy.
And I was obsessed with those. So I was like, what if there was a monster that was the source of those? And then that's why I drew Sirenhead in. And then I kind of just moved on and did other guys. But the response was really good for Sirenhead, so I drew him a few more times. But it wasn't until 2020, around my birthday,
It
that
was like the height of TikTok, wasn't it?
it was the height
Wasn't
of
it? Isn't that
TikTok.
where it kind of showed up?
What happened was a friend of mine who has a game, or a mutual online anyway, has a game company called Modus Interactive. And he was just like, can I just do a little demo like level with this character Sirenhead that you did? Because I really like it. And I said, sure. And he designed this little thing where you're like you go along a path and then you encounter Sirenhead and you run back to your car. It's very short, but it's very effective. And so he had made that right when I made Sirenhead. And but 2020, around my birthday in April, two things happened like within 2 or 3 days of each other for whatever reason, which is Markiplier and like Jacksepticeye and everyone found that game and started playing it, and we're like, who the hell is, what's this character that's so cool? So that had a huge audience. Everyone was like, what's this Sirenhead thing? And then at the exact same time, somebody made the name is killing me. Someone on Instagram who does these computer animations of different characters did one of Sirenhead, of like this giant Sirenhead in the city. You've seen it probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it's not the first time that I saw, but that's the one that I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
oh no, oh, this would be terrifying to see.
Yeah. And that went viral with people putting different music behind him and making him dance and doing all kinds of weird stuff. So those two things happened at the exact same time. And then that caused Sirenhead to become viral, as they say. And then he just got subsumed by YouTube and taken over by YouTube. And now he's like a children's YouTube icon,
which is so interesting and a
so
little
weird.
bit bizarre, because like it's not something that you would think.
No.
You know, oh, this is for like small little 5-year-old
No.
Timmy and Samantha and you know, Chet are gonna just go and hang out with like their Sirenhead little plushy dolls.
Yeah. But I think if you design something for kids, like they can tell, like they can easily tell, like there's like a subconscious condescension there, I think. Whether you mean it to be or not. When you're designing something for kids, it's really hard not to make it feel like to the kid, oh, this is like you're designing this specifically for me. I don't want this. I want something adult. Mm-hmm. Whereas I design these monsters just like, oh, that looks cool, or that looks scary, or like, what would this look like, you know? And all of them have kind of have this huge kid fan base, like especially Sirenhead. But like, I get fan art all the time for like tons of weird monsters that I just drew once in a photo like in 2019 and have never revisited, that have like a huge fan base by like some, you know, 10-year-old in Japan or Norway or wherever. It's really weird. But I'm happy they have resonated so much, I guess. It's just strange.
Yeah. Of the you've created a ton of things. You've been doing this for a handful of years now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you, before doing this, you seem to be a large fan of the spooky and the creepy and the horror and the unexplained.
Yeah.
And that usually doesn't happen like overnight.
No.
What do you have a time or a moment where you're like, oh, I really like spooky stuff, and like what kind of draws you to partaking in scary stuff or spooky or creepy things like movies and other media, and then also deciding to make art based off of that?
You know, it's been my entire life. My dad is and was and continues to be extremely into all horror. He's a huge horror fan. So he was basically the gateway to, like, you know, Stephen King and you know, all the horror books he had I read, and we used to watch horror movies all the time. That was basically like every weekend all growing up was going and getting a new horror movie to watch. So, you know, I just totally got it from him and got that love of horror and that passion for horror from him. So when I started drawing when I was really young, it just that was a natural outlet for it, and it's only continued in that direction since.
Okay, so you've been drawing like horror based or like spooky kind of creepy things since starting your
I started drawing, like the very first.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely. The first stuff I ever drew was monsters. Yeah.
Amazing. We love monsters. So then I'll try to limit it so you're not going back through however many years of drawings. At least within the last like 5 years, I would say. What are some of your favorite little creations? Or it's kind of like asking what your favorite child is.
Yeah.
But like, what are some of the ones you remember the most
Yeah,
Besides Siren Head, which is like this viral sensation, obviously, but like
yeah,
ones that maybe you find a special place that most people might not, you know.
yeah. Well, yeah, there are some monsters that have much more like story behind and influence, and other ones that are just like I want to see what that would look like there, and that's the extent of it. So if I had to pick a few, they definitely are the ones that have more an interesting backstory, whether I've said it or not at this
Mhm.
point. So probably the man with the upside down face, I think, is really scary. I
It's
gotta,
terrifying. That one's scary. Every time I see it, I'm just like, especially if you put it in group pictures.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
looking through and I'm like, which one is the bad face? It's
yeah. I gotta do more of those. I haven't drawn at him for a while. I like him. I really like the Sisters of the Ever Sharpening Blade, the weird like Cenobite nun bloodborne ladies. Yeah. Who else? There's a new one that I've only drawn once that I think is really interesting. That's called the Singing Clergyman. That's inspired by like medieval automatons, like chess playing robots that got made.
Oh.
Where it's like this robot sort of like it's like this. It's a really strange one. It's almost like it's the story is that these kids find this church when they're urban exploring, and they find a hole in the wall. They knock a hole in the wall, and they find this like really shoddy automaton that looks like a priest, but its head is just this like arm with a mouth and nose, like a plastic mouth and nose. Uh,
Oh, I'm just looking at it now and I don't know how I missed it because that's
yeah, well, I've only drawn it once, I think, once or twice, and
woof.
it's not malevolent, but it sings this. It plays this song that like you become fixated on, and then you can't sleep, and you just like it becomes an obsession about finding it again. Um, so I like him. He's cool. I think there's like this art piece from a couple years ago that inspired him. That was just like this mouth, like he has, that had been programmed to like do these AI generated chants.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And I thought that was so alarming. So
yeah.
yeah, he's inspired by that. And then I guess I like. Oh yeah, there's new guys I did too that are like these little, like really small, horrible men in trench coats and hats with like awful, saggy faces that think that they work for the government, but they don't actually work for the government. They're just some horrible entities. But they'll decide that you like owe them, and they'll just show up and like hack off your body parts.
Ah!
Yeah. Um, yeah, like they're called the piecemeal men. And I like those guys. I think they're awful.
That's it's
Yeah.
it's those it's I like that. Here's a big reason that I started following specifically your Twitter
Yeah.
is because of these little like bite size. Well, one, your art is great. Like
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
not going to deny that, but these little bite sized. It doesn't tell the whole story. It tells
Yeah.
like one tiny little snapshot,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then everything else that you think about that particular little snapshot and picture
Yeah.
is far more terrifying than if you had written an entire like an entire story, short story,
Exactly.
or anything like that. Like this clergyman, I'm just like looking at it on the screen and I'm just like, this is gonna haunt my nightmares now. This is terrifying. But in like
Yeah.
a good way, in a way that is just like
Yeah.
I want more because I just don't want to look away, but I need to because otherwise I'm gonna pee my pants.
Well, thank
That
you.
kind of feel.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all, when I started doing it, it was kind of like a personal experiment where I wanted to see how well I could, develop the skills of matching something into a photo. And not, even now I think it depends on the photo because some are really hard to match and others are a lot easier. But then also like, I want to work within the 140 or whatever character limit on Twitter and just
Mm-hmm.
see like I'm not going to do like a thread. I'm just going to do one post, and I just have to get whatever information I want about this photo into that one post and those characters. And then anything else will just be like, it has to be just suggestive because I want people to read it and be able to like, you know, uh, get the, what's the word? Get the
Mm-hmm.
implications of it to be really scary, I guess.
Mm.
So yeah, that's why I do it like that, I guess. I think, yeah, the story seed is way more scary than any big paragraph I could write out, I guess.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's set in. I've heard a lot of people say that like most things are scary because of what you interpret is happening. So like
Yeah,
in memorable horror movies, it's not what you see that scares you, it's
yeah.
what you don't see and
Oh yeah,
think is there, and then your brain just goes 1,000 miles a minute trying to figure out what scary thing is there.
yeah,
And sometimes if you see a thing, sometimes it's there's that like relief of like, oh,
yeah,
it's not as bad as I thought it was, or oh, it's much worse but I can see it now, so it's fine.
yeah.
um
A
yeah.
good example of that is I just watched The Descent for the first time in many years. And it's still a really good movie, but especially now watching it. Have you seen The Descent?
I haven't. It's on my long ever growing list of movies I need to watch though.
It's really good, and without spoiling too much, the first half I found is it's about cavers, obviously,
Hmm.
who go down into this cave and become trapped. The first part, there's no monsters at all, and it's deeply scary because it's just about being trapped and the implication that maybe there's something in the other parts of the cave. But the
Hmm.
second part kind of morphs into like an action horror where they're actively fighting back against the monsters, and it's
Hmm.
deeply less scary than the earlier part because you like while it's still flesh-eating monsters are after these characters and killing them and it's very violent and gory, they're still able to fight back, and that amount of like hope or that kind of action that they can take is enough to
Hmm.
like completely dampen how scary the first half is, and it's very jarring.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't fight just a cave in the first part,
Yep.
whereas this you can fight these monsters even if they're
Yeah.
monsters. And I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, whenever there's a movie where like as soon as they reveal the monster, it's a monster, but it's a monster, like it's there and it's something tangible and you can fight it or evade it in some way, whereas you're always going to lose a bit of the scariness when you give it form, I guess.
So, what would you say then is some pieces of media, whether it is books or art or
Mhm.
movies? Movies are the easiest because they're visual.
Yeah.
That you would say really do kind of keep that through line of being that kind of tense scariness when it needs to be throughout the entire thing, instead of like that strange jarring.
um most of the movies that I find really frightening are found footage because they're really careful about what they show, whether that's a budget limitation or what. They don't you don't really It's all a lot of implication in movies like that, and what's centered in the frame.
Hmm.
And I find that they can keep that dread going a lot longer than a more conventionally shot film.
Hmm.
So for like the movies that I think are just like fully scary all the way through, I would say probably there's a movie called Savage Land that is really deeply scary. That's not even a found footage. It's like a faux documentary set after the events have already happened, but it's centered around this
Oh.
group of 12 photos. The plot is that this town on the Mexican American border, everyone is killed in it, violently killed overnight. But there's one survivor who's this Mexican immigrant who's also a photographer. So they blame it all on him. It's a very political film about racism and bigotry. So there's that level of it too. But the whole film centers around the fact that while this guy's on death row for these crimes, the documentary is going through this roll of 12 photos, black and white photos he took during that night of what actually happened in the town, and the photos are fucking so scary. They're so scary. There was no, I think there's one snippet at the very end that's actually found footage, like a bit of camera footage, but everything else is just still photos that they show you on screen. And it's some of the scariest shit I've ever seen in my life. I swear to God. It's so
Wow.
good. Yeah, it's deeply effective. Um, and that's really interesting too, because it's all after the fact. It's all after everything really scary has happened. It's just
Hmm.
reconstructing it in real time, I guess. Um, but there's that one. There's the one most people will say if they watch a lot of found footage horror movies, which is Noroi the Curse, which is deeply scary. Um, and then the director Koji Shirashi did another film called Occult, um, that is probably one of the most unnerving things I've ever seen. You can watch the full movie on YouTube. You should just look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, either of those movies are amazing. I think Norway is on Shudder. Yeah, and and the one other one that's a really good example, but it's not a found footage horror movie that I always point to, is the '70s Black Christmas, which has had like
Mm.
3 remakes at this point, but it is I guess early or like sort of proto slasher movie about basically all these girls at a sorority getting intimidating phone calls while they don't know that the killer's actually upstairs in the attic, calling down and picking them up. But unlike other slasher movies and horror movies at the time, you never see the killer. It's through the whole movie, you never ever see him. It's always just this horrible, horrible voice on a telephone. That is the phone calls he gives are some of the scariest stuff you'll ever hear in film. And I think the most you see at one point is an eye in a door crack, and it's just like petrifying. But it never breaks that dread through the whole movie. It maintains it from the opening credits to the end credits. And it's just the bleakest, scariest movie. It's so good. Yeah. You got to see it. Yeah, I always wait for Christmas time to rewatch it because it is a Christmas film. But it is just great. It's one of like a handful of Canadian horror productions that I can point to and be like really proud of. Yeah.
You were mentioning like the found footage stuff, and at least at the time of this recording, the biggest media that I've seen that's kind of found footage and kind of like not is the Mandela catalog on YouTube.
I haven't dug into that yet.
It is
meaning to.
It's bizarre. It's strange. It's weaving. I think it's got three main videos, and then it's got a bunch of like ancillary like additives, which build this completely otherworldly entity or group of entities called alters. Or the alternatives, or it's something like that.
Yeah, I know the I know the monsters because I've seen art and stuff of them. But
and it's an interesting take on the found footage thing, because a lot of it is in like government videos or like training videos or from like detective like police footage or things of that nature, or like old biblical cartoons that get like weirdly altered because of some strange alien or otherworldly presence is trying to communicate and being real creepy about it. But throughout most of it, you kind of see flashes of what these altars could be, but nothing's ever really confirmed. The newest one has like a brief bit of like what one of these altars looks like in like real motion. Yeah. And like it's only a little bit, but I think what it did, because it built up all of this huge backlog of you kind of had to trust what these images were showing you, and like how much of it is real and how much of it is not. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it shows you just this very tiny, like of this almost 30-minute video, there's maybe 3 seconds where you get to see this thing. Yeah. And it's only one version of this thing. Yeah. And it could look like whatever. And it was very strange. And I think it kind of fits in that like that tell, don't show kind of.
Be very careful what you show,
Exactly, what you choose to show is more important than like what you like. Choosing what to leave out and what to show and when to show it is so important in like thrillers, but specifically in horror. If you want to have that really good payoff, you can't just like lay all your cards out on the table all at once. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of horror movies that will build up to, reveal of a monster, and they'll have it like for literally 1 or 2 seconds, but it's still enough to spoil the whole thing. Like if it's not going to work, like don't show it for half a second. Just do not show it at all. I'd rather have someone see it on screen and then tell me, like narrate it, than actually see it, because it just ruins the movie a lot of the time. Yeah.
There was one movie that I saw, and it's not. In retrospect, it wasn't the best movie around, but at the time, I was really freaked out about it until towards the end, which is the movie Signs. Oh yeah. Where up until like maybe the last 10 minutes or so, you see nothing. You see nothing, but things are happening, and you're hearing stuff, and then for like just a flash, just one little flash, you see something towards the end, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's not bad. Like maybe that was a person, maybe it was a I don't know, but it kind of just like the ending of that movie to me was not satisfying. Partially just because I don't think it ended very well.
Yeah,
but
that's general consensus. Yeah, so
like the majority of that movie was like interesting, and then it was like.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, the stuff that's strong at times is so.
But speaking of other kinds of media that you do, I did a little bit of looking and found some other stuff that you're doing besides just like your Twitter art and such like that.
Yeah,
there's some zines that you did.
Yeah.
A little while ago, as well as you're drawing for comic books, which is really cool. Like the covers for a bunch of comic books.
Yeah. I love doing variant covers for different comics. I'm working on a couple right now that are really cool, I think. Yeah.
They're really cool. I'll link to the ones that are available. But the one I was very interested in, I had to do like a lot of digging to make sure that it was real. Did you write? Was there a coloring book that you helped make? Okay, because I was like, is this actually Trevor's, or is this someone who just like, because there's a lot, there's with like Sirenhead getting viral and everything.
I know, yeah.
There's so many people who are just like taking things that are precious to you, and as like an artist myself, I'm like, that just is just really just frustrating.
Yeah.
From an outside perspective, that's frustrating for me to see.
Yeah, it's been a bit frustrating. Of the merchandise out there right now, everything is fake. Except for that one coloring book by a friend of mine. He did everything. I didn't work on it at all. I just I gave him my approval to do it. So that's legitimate. And then there are some official shirts coming to the UK that I have signed off on, and now we're looking into doing like official plush that aren't those terrible knockoffs.
Yeah.
Because I can't fight the knockoffs. There's so many, they're all from overseas, and there's no possible way to shut them down. They're everywhere. I get photos from people in like Iowa and like Indiana and all across the world being like, I found this at this dirt mall, like that's been down the street for 20 years. Like I have no part in any of that. Yeah.
But the one of the things that I saw that I believe you're currently working on or starting to work on is a children's book with Scholastic.
Yeah.
And I would love to talk about that because we talked about it earlier about like, you know, Sirenhead getting to the point of popularity where like kids are like, I want this, but you're like legitimately writing a book that is geared for a younger audience, a spooky book, a scary book. And I would love to hear more about this book, inspirations behind it. All that sort of stuff. Your hopes and dreams for what it might become, but all those.
I wrote it. It is written in the first draft, the very rough first draft. I'm just waiting to hear back from my editor. It's been a little bit, but when I hear back, you know, it's going to go through all the various iterations. It is, you know, I have a contract with Scholastic for 2 books in this potential series. One is written. When it's finalized, it'll have illustrations. It's going to have like an illustration a chapter, so around 30 illustrations. And yeah, it's just like the kind of classic kids versus monsters in a small town kind of thing. Kind of it for really young kids. Yeah, but I mean, it's still scary, I think, and it's just full of monsters. It's got 8 or 9 different monsters, I think, in it. Kind of each one is centered around a different character, like a kid. Each kid has their own monster that's after them, and it's also centered around this like spooky radio station at the edge of town. So like, you know, there are narrative chapters that deal with the kids and the monsters, and then also like interludes that talk about the town from the radio station, different broadcasts, transcripts of this like scary radio DJ and his show about the history of the town.
Because I saw that when you had tweeted about it, that it was mentioning something about like Night Vale, like Welcome to Night Vale vibes. Which, like, if anybody here's not familiar, Welcome to Night Vale is a podcast that's been going for quite a long time, very successfully, about a normal town called Night Vale, and it's with like it's through the perspective of a radio host.
Yeah.
and like you talking about it like really makes me it's I love Night Vale, and so I know that this is going to be something I absolutely vibe with
I
as
hope
well.
so. Yeah. Yeah, it's not quite like that because the town is on the surface normal. It's just people disappear a lot and the
Hmm.
monsters are a newer thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's got, the radio station has been a really fun device to delve into the town without in a natural way, and also like give some context to why these particular monsters are running around. And also, yeah, I haven't got any notes back about how if I have to tone anything down, but kids get got in it, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like if we think back, I'm thinking back to like some books that I read that maybe I should not have read, but they were definitely written for like young adults to like older,
Yeah.
preteens. And the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark
Hmm.
is one of them that
Oh
like
yeah.
haunted my nightmares forever. It's absolutely written as a young adult book.
Yeah.
And there was another one, How to Disappear Completely and Never Be Found,
Oh
is one that mixes both like a chapter book and also comic book in it, telling
yeah.
the same story. But that's another one that's like revolves around like young teens, and definitely some of them also get gotten at
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and it's freaky, and like I read it 20 plus years ago, and it's still I can see the cover is there, I can still see like
Yeah.
what happened in there. So like it's interesting to me to think like what kids and like young people. I can only speak for me as being a young person. I enjoyed spooky stuff even though I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to be spooked sometimes because most of my life was not spooky, thankfully.
Yeah.
Like, and so I wanted those like the little like secret like, oh, I'll hide this spooky book so that my parents don't see it and they don't get
Yeah.
scared.
That was me with the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, those
Hmm.
were really formative, and the illustrations especially were a huge influence because they scared the crap out of me.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch the film adaptation
Yeah,
for Scary Stories? What's your thought on
I really
that?
liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It had some interesting politics that I kind of think they copped out on at the very, very end in a weird way,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is honestly most people's complaint. It stinks of the studio being like he has to go to war at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
But the monsters are amazing. I thought it was a great kids horror movie. Um, Managed to be really true to the illustrations in a really fun way. All prosthetic and practical effects work. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like there was the what was it? The very tall, very slow moving with like the very large, I don't remember exactly. I don't remember the names of any of these things, but I distinctly remember very tall, like with spidery black hair with like the big kind of
Was it the really
droopy
pale?
eyes. Yeah. It
That's
kind of looked
the
like a giant fish person almost.
the one that absorbed the kid into its.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
pale woman, I think, or the pale lady, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That's the one
Yeah,
that I remember from the book.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
you just pulled this straight out of my brain, and I'm gonna go cry for a hot
They
second.
were all good, but that was the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm told they have a deleted scene somewhere where, like, because in the story, the Scarecrow skins a dude, and the climax of the story is him laying out this bloody skin on the roof of the shack. And I think there's a deleted scene where he's laying out that teenager's skin on the house by the cornfield. I'm like, that I can see why they cut that because that's pretty rough for kids movie, but also I'd like to
that's
see
in
it.
like that's in like the like straight to DVD version.
Yeah.
This is the grown-up version where you
I
can see
wish.
what really happened.
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah, I would like to see that. But it's good. Yeah, I hope they do a sequel eventually. I know there was talk for a while of doing a sequel.
Yeah. I am a person who I read a couple of spooky stuff when I was a kid, but I'm a recent partaker of horror fiction and movies and stuff like that. I think within the last like like 3 or 4 years or so. So like, believe it or not, your works have been formative in introducing me into like good horror. So
well, thank you so much.
well, thank you so much for being
Yeah.
creepy and cool. And I think it's really interesting. Like one of the reasons that I like to have chats with people in this kind of setting is like, you know, if people don't know who, you know, someone like yourself is, who just makes creepy stuff, there can be this like unconscious, you know, vision of like, oh, this person makes creepy stuff. They must be like a kind of creepy person, or like a kind of like XYZ kind of person.
Yeah.
And here you go, friends. People are just cool and chill, and sometimes they like creepy, weird, terrible things. Yeah. And sometimes those things crawl out of your head and into, you know, the internet.
Yeah, exactly. They can live there. It's better. It's fine.
To shift just a little bit, because like most people, I know that you are a multifaceted human being who doesn't just do spooky stuff and horror stuff and anything like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, one, what are some things that you do outside of the spooky, scary horror stuff? Like, do you do either professionally or just like stuff you just enjoy doing outside of, you know, the things that most people know you for, quote unquote?
Yeah, I mean, I play a lot of video games. I'm all normal stuff. I just play video games. What else do I do? I like to go on bike rides. I read a lot. You know, nothing really crazy. I don't have any big hobbies outside of art, especially the last couple of years because I've been so busy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, just normal stuff.
One thing I've been asking, or trying to ask everyone so far, is I am a very big tabletop RPG player. I play I have books everywhere. I've got like all sorts of stuff. I have this book, which eventually someday we're gonna play. Someday. Someday's gonna happen. But I was wondering, one, if you played any kind of TTRPGs, and if so, what are some of your favorites that you've played?
Yeah, I'm of the type who is mainly a collector, in that I buy it because it looks really cool and then I put it on my shelf, and I never have the time to ever play it. But that said, I do really like Tales from the Loop. I need to get the 90s add-on to that. Things from the Flood, I think it's
Things
called.
from the Flood, yep.
Other than that, what else? I play a lot of board. I used to play board games a lot with friends before the pandemic. The Trail House on the Hill. There's an amazing one called Camp Grizzly that's like sold out everywhere. Camp
Grizzly is so good. I got to play it with a friend of mine who was like, I got it, like I barely got it, and
I know
so
it's like $600 or $700 now on eBay or whatever. It's like they do not make it anymore. It's a shame. It's really good, and the art is gorgeous. It's like a Pixar movie adaptation of Friday the 13th that they made a board game of. Besides that, for TTRPGs, right now I'm playing. I just played like a little while ago. I played Mothership, a whole thing full of Mothership with a couple friends that I play online with. And right now we're doing a mod for a game called Liminal Horror called The Mall. That's like a 80s The Thing in a mall is basically the pitch. Okay. And that's really fun, but it's, you know, hard to find time. It's the main thing.
It's because to pull back the curtain a little bit to our friends at home, I'm running a Blades in the Dark game for Trevor and a handful of other people someday. But let me tell you, y'all, when you try to collect 5 adults with busy schedules together to do anything, my goodness. Is it a challenge to do anything? So I absolutely understand.
Yeah. Maybe in like September. Maybe in like
I'm hoping for an end of the year like super bash that we're able to finally sit down and be like, let's play this game that's really cool and I'm excited about.
This month alone has been like this is probably the June and this month are like the busiest I've ever been in my life. Maybe it's gonna die.
I empathize 100% with that because it has also been. I've been the most tired I have ever been, probably ever. Except maybe finals week my senior year in college.
Absolutely.
But it's, you know, spread out. It's the same energy, but like for 30 days instead of a week. You know.
I just did TCAF with my partner, which is the Toronto Comics and Arts Festival, which is this huge tabling event. I did that, and then immediately we had to run to Washington D.C. For a librarians conference because my partner Jen is promoting a book she just made called Space Trash. That's incredible. Everyone reads Space Trash.
Space Trash.
It's a graphic novel about angry punk teenagers on the moon, at a high school on the moon, who find out that the Earth, which has been condemned as unlivable, is actually not unlivable, and start a plan to like get back. It's amazing. Everyone should read it. That's my plug.
That sounds incredible.
So it's really good. She wrote and drew and inked and colored the entire thing, and it's being released through Oni Press. And you can look it up. It's great. One of potentially 4 books. So we were there promoting that. She did a bunch of signings and talks, and I sweated because that city is a swamp. And and then I came back, and immediately we have to move. So I'm just like, yeah,
no time to breathe. You're
Literally.
not allowed.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What sort of okay, so here's a big question.
Yeah,
Thinky question.
Okay.
With everything that you're making, with everything that you're working on right now, whether it's your art or your writing or anything like that.
Yeah.
Thinking big brain here.
Yeah.
What are you hoping will come about because of the things that you make and create and release into the world?
Absolutely. I want to do, the Scholastic book, for better or worse, is my first like actual narrative project. I've kind of made my name on these short snippets of stories and these little bits of imagery. I'd really love to move forward into more ambitious storytelling, and be able to tell more fully fledged stories, which I've not really as of yet done, but I hope to do that moving forward. And not just horror. I'd love to, there's a million things I'd love to do in horror, but also like, science fiction, fantasy, and other fun stuff like that. And then in the inverse direction, there's tons of properties I would love to be able to work on, in a creative capacity, like Creep Show, like the Creep Show would be amazing to be able to contribute to in some capacity. Channel Zero, if that ever pops up in any way, shape, or form. I'm the world's biggest Channel Zero fanboy. If that ever happened again, it's kind of crazy. It hasn't been picked up for a 5th season somewhere, like Shudder or somebody. I'm told it's just a matter of budgets. They've been looking into it, but
yeah.
If that ever happened, I'd love to be on board with that. Nick and Tosca in general is just incredible. He's the showrunner for Channel Zero. He's also the showrunner for Brand New Cherry Flavor, if you've ever seen that one. Oh my God, nobody watched it because it came out on Netflix and then was immediately the next
washed
thing
away. The next day, 1,000 new things came out. Yeah.
You gotta watch Brand New Cherry Flavor on Netflix. It's like 6 or 7 episodes. It's amazing. It feels like a 5th season of Channel Zero.
Okay.
Exact vibe. It's curses in Hollywood, in LA, in 90s LA. Yeah, witches and weird people vomiting up cats and.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's amazing. I just tell everyone to watch it. You gotta watch it. It's really good. It's like one of the 5 super good things on Netflix that everyone needs to actually watch. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I want to work on Channel Zero. Yeah, I just, I would love to, in one direction, go, become more ambitious in my storytelling and really move into writing more and trying to be broader in that sense. And then in the other direction, use what I've done with these photos and these blurbs to kind of work on more fan projects that I would love, that I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
Kind of do the Hideaki Anno technique where he got really big with Evangelion and then turned around and has done, worked with Godzilla, worked with Ultraman, worked with Kamen Rider, because that's what he grew up on. That's the ideal. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that you would ever take like your works, whether they're, do you think you'd ever go back to like, combing through Twitter, which is always a nightmare.
Yeah.
But go back and take like the images that you made and those blurbs and put it into like a zine or like an omnibus or anything like that as like a physical like thing that you can hold and like people do.
I want to, yeah. And you know, the people ask about it a lot, and I really want to do that. The only thing keeping me hesitant about that is that, you know, the majority of those are all photos people have donated. And
Mm-hmm.
I would feel weird putting them in a book without crediting them and then selling it. But that's also like so much legwork to
Yeah.
do. And a lot of times it's like I just got it from a Twitter account that's just gone now. So
Yeah.
like, do I not use that? Because maybe this guy surfaces in 3 years and rightly it's like, you used my thing in this, and you know, it never gave me anything. So I would have to like either hunt down these people for the ones I want to use, which I would do. If I was ever going to do something, I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was ever going to package them in a book, or just use the ones that are just from photos I took, which are like 10 to 15% or
Mm-hmm.
less, or recreate them with photos I take. Either way, it's a ton of work, and I just haven't had the time to do it yet. I really,
yeah.
I want to, and I could potentially release a book of them. I did just go and get some. I sent away to get some Polaroid photos made.
Ooh.
So I have five. I got 50 made, 5 of 10 different designs.
Uh-huh.
But I'll probably just do like a giveaway. I think I just want to see what it would look like. So I'll keep a set for myself, and then I'll give away 4 sets of them. I guess just these 10 images on Polaroid photos whenever they show up.
Oh, that's so cool.
But that'd be fun to do. Again, just if I ever did a project, it'd be nice to have like, oh, it can be like a scrapbook of like someone who was like researching these creatures or whatever. So it's all different newspaper clippings and stuff like that, and then also like Polaroids tucked in, you know?
Yes, that's the sort of stuff that it's really hard to see like way back here, but this is stuff from Jordan Shively from their like Patreon, their like weird mail stuff.
Yeah, he's already beat me to that. He's doing that exact same thing. Yeah,
it's so good. That's the sort of stuff that I love. I love tangible things that just tell like the weird ephemera and stuff that's left behind. I love going to antique stores and like trying to figure out like where all these things are. So like Polaroids and stuff like that. Big fan. Huge fan.
It's always good. It's always good.
Well, I hope that eventually comes some iteration of that, because like the stuff that you make is really cool. The stories, the little snippet stories that come like alongside them, the whole lore of all of it is just so fascinating. So like I hope something comes of that.
Yeah, I would love to do that. It feels like, you know, a bit of a waste because they're just like live online. Totally just online. I'd like to have a physical form of them in some capacity. A lot of them now I look back and I'm like, some of these don't look good. So I would excise those ones and just choose the ones I like. But I've done like 3,000 or 4,000 of them maybe now.
That's a lot to choose from, for sure. You just picked the top 500 even. That's a book. That's a big book.
Maybe I'm overestimating. Maybe it's just like 1,000. It's definitely at least 1,000 by now. There's like 4 or 5 years of them. I'd have to go through and actually count. I should really go through and catalog them all. The only place where they all live in one row is my Instagram. My Instagram is basically just art.
Okay.
So that'd be where I'd go through and collect them all up again. I'll take a day and do that at some point.
Yeah. Well, because you sell, do you sell art prints of like the things that you make and everything like that?
Yeah, not the photo stuff though. I only just art.
Just the digital art,
Yeah, through Imprint. I have an Imprint store, and I have a TeePublic. Again for the art. I think there's one photo on there because it's a photo I took at my old house. But otherwise, it's just a digital art.
Cool. Well, everybody, you should go buy support artists for that. But also, like, this is like just a general PSA for everyone in the audience, whoever watches or listens to this. Credit artists, please. Like,
it's easy and fun.
It's so easy to do. If you're gonna share a thing, just do a quick little tag of this. Just like look for the person, because there's so much that I see that is really cool by artists like Trevor and like other people that are like just shown everywhere, and like cool, people can see these, but also like it would be great if the person who made it knew how much people were enjoying it. For one, that's always a cool thing to see people enjoying your stuff. But then also like so that, you know, there's a lot of opportunities that artists can get because people see their stuff. Don't short artists, y'all. Don't do it. Pay for your art, and then also credit your art. Just it's easy. It's really easy. Well, Trevor, thank you for joining and talking about the cool things that you're doing and all this sort of stuff.
Of course, yeah.
This better not be the last time we chat, because I'll be
no.
very
It won't be.
We're gonna do more stuff.
We'll do lots of stuff. Yeah,
we gotta play video games together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something that's maybe not Elden Ring, because we played that for 1,000 years. But
I played too much of that. I can't do it anymore. Maybe the Evil Dead game or something. Oh, or the Quarry. Maybe we should do the Quarry.
I need to play that, so maybe we should play it. We'll see. Maybe we'll have Trevor on stream someday.
Yeah,
whenever time allows.
Yeah. Next month for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But thank you for being here. For those who are watching and viewing, I'll have a lot of links and stuff in chat and in the description, everything of this place. But where can people find you? And if there's anything that you know that you're doing come like fall or so, let people know some stuff that's coming up if you got anything.
Well, the two places I live online mostly are Slimy Swamp Ghost is my Twitter, and then inversely Trevor Henderson is my Instagram, all one word. If you want just mostly art stuff, Instagram is just art. But if you want a bunch of bullshit that I post and stupid crap and movie reviews and things like that, that's Twitter. And in terms of stuff coming up, me and my partner Jen are going to be at SBX in Maryland, the Small Press Expo, and I'll try and have something to sell there. I still really want to do a Riso printed horror movie recommendation zine. If I get a moment to do that, that would be lovely. So I'll be there if you want to come say hi to either of us. And then I think that's all I have right now in terms of projects I can talk about. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that's under NDA.
Nice.
Really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Follow those socials, and I'm sure Trevor will let you know exactly when things happen.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
I will. Yeah.
All right, fantastic, wonderful, and of course, everyone, you can find me everywhere as at happycapster, mostly on Twitter, sometimes on Instagram, and occasionally on TikTok. But until next time, everyone, may your cups be full of something delicious and warm and tasty. Have a great day. Have a great night. Have a great time zone. We love you. I love you. You're great. Bye.
Bye.